Hello and welcome to BMA 258 Services Marketing. This week we'll be dealing with Chapter 9 of our textbook, which is Managing People for Service Advantage. So the learning objectives for this week are first of all to demonstrate an understanding of the service profit chain framework. Number 2, explain why the frontline is crucial to the success of a service firm. Number 3, explain why the work of frontline service employees is so demanding, challenging and often very difficult. Number 4, distinguish between the cycles of failure, the cycle of mediocrity and the cycle of success in human resources management for service firms. And number 5, explain how to attract, select, retain and then explain how to attract, select, train, motivate, retain outstanding frontline service employees. And number 6, describe the service role culture and service leadership in sustaining service excellence. So let's get right into it then, about the service profit chain. So this idea comes from when service companies put their employees and their customers first, then a radical shift occurs in the way that they manage and measure success. And they relate the profitability, the customer loyalty and customer satisfaction to the value created by satisfied, loyal and productive employees. Now I've got a quote here from Richard Branson, who is a billionaire in the UK, and he's quite famous for developing, well not really for developing on this, but for really promoting this idea, when he says, clients do not come first, employees come first. And if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your clients. And that was quite different. And for someone like me that's trained in marketing, it was always put your customers first because they're the ones that bring money into your business. Now, he probably point out that he has been very successful, but he no longer owns Virgin Australia, and he has been successful, but it's a little bit easy to misunderstand this quote. So usually I'm not promoting this idea which he says. What I'm saying, or what the research shows, is that we put customers and employees together first, and that we link in our minds the importance of how we treat our employees is how they're going to treat our customers. So if we really want to put our customers first, or really give good service to our customers, we need to put a lot of effort into looking after our employees. And that's kind of the idea that we're trying to emphasize today. So we have here the service profit chain. Now this is a model. Now the model runs from left to right, but I'm going to start in the middle here, because we're dealing with marketing, so we spend a lot of time looking at this section here. So we go, well, as marketers, we want to increase customer satisfaction and customer retention or customer loyalty, and we want customer advocacy, or that's customer referrals, right? So we know that these things are good because they lead to profitability, they lead to higher operating margins, and they lead to growth, right? So, but what this model does, it says, well, what makes these things happen, the perceived service quality and perceived customer value, which we know from our marketing, but then they go this step further, deeper into understanding how human behavior works, and they go, well, what has the impact on perceived service quality and perceived customer value is employee behavior. And what makes employee behavior good is employee satisfaction, a good service climate and service leadership, quality service leadership, right? And that's going to have good employee behavior, and then it's going to lead to good employee retention. So what they're kind of suggesting, or what this research shows, is that employee satisfaction, a good service climate and service leadership flows through this chain and ends up being creating profits for your business. So that's why it's called the service profit chain, because in a service organisation, you look after your employees, and create a compelling place to work, and you'll end up with better margins, more profit. Now, this is true. However, I want to put a bit of expand this out a little bit. So while this model is true, it's not the only thing that leads to service profit. It's one of the things. So this model is quite narrow in its focus, and it's focusing on employee behavior, because we should know by now, when we look at perceived service quality, we often talk about expectations, right? And how we manage the expectations of our customers is going to impact how they perceive service quality and their satisfaction of that, right? And we've got these other models, such as the ServQual model and the Radar model, which deals with reliability, assuranceness, tangibilities, all those sorts of things, right? So while it's true that these do impact service quality and perceived customer value, it's not the only thing. But since we're dealing with the people part of our extended service marketing mix, the P for people, is quite valid and to focus on this when we've got an employee problem or a people problem. All right, so let's look at the service profit chain now. So the key linkages in the service profit chain are customer retention and loyalty drives profitability, and growth and customer satisfaction drives customer retention. This is quite well established in marketing theory. It shouldn't be new to us. Right, value drives customer satisfaction, which is true. And I'm going to go back a slide here. We can see that here. Customer retention, customer satisfaction, they lead to profitability. All right. Excuse me. Now, value drives customer satisfaction. Service quality and productivity drive value. So I'm going to go back again. These things drive value. Went the wrong way. But now it gets to the actual employee part of it. And employee satisfaction and loyalty drive service quality and productivity. So I'm going to go back a slide here. So it's saying employee satisfaction and drives employee behaviour, which drives these things. And that's really the crunch, the impact of that research, where it's making a significant contribution to our knowledge. So employee satisfaction drives employee loyalty or customer retention, employee retention. Internal service climate, leadership and satisfaction drives employee behaviour, and then top management leadership underlines the chain's success. I'm going to go back a slide now, and that's the service leadership culture. So this is really important because what a lot of managers don't, I shouldn't say a lot, but what some managers don't understand is that the culture of our workplaces is really driven by the leadership. So it's us as our managers, people that run it. So if you go, I've got a culture problem in my organisation and my employees are not happy and they haven't got bad customer service and blah, blah, blah. We'll look at these cycles in a minute coming up. It's really your problem. Like, it starts with you personally, because what the leadership, what the service leadership, like the owners, the directors and the senior managers of the organisation, what they say is important and value, and what the way that they live out, like the way that they act and behave, their employees see that and that sets the culture, the values, norms and assumptions. All right, so let's look at so this is the service profit chain. So we've looked at how each of those concepts link together, basically starting with people as our employees, ending up with profit. Okay, now people as competitive advantage. So the encounter with service staff is one of the most important aspects of service, and often it's called the moment of truth. We've used that phrase a little bit because that's where all this planning that we've done comes together and bang. The service delivery can be an important source of differentiation and competitive advantage. So service employees are important for competitive advantage, competitive positioning, because first of all, frontline employees are a key part of the product, because services, their behaviour, what they're doing is what the customer's actually paying for. Frontline employees are the service firm, and that seems a bit strange, but what we mean by that is, from the customer's perspective, who they're dealing with, they're acting on behalf of the firm, so that's what they see of the firm. So for your customers, their perception of the firm is the staff that they're dealing with. And then frontline employees are the brand. Now remember, the brand is quite a comprehensive term that we mean here. It's the values and the way that we communicate. So brand is the way that we, the logos that we use, the things that we use to communicate our positioning within the market. And the employees are a key part of that, of course. All right, so as managers, we need to understand that frontline work is very difficult and very stressful. So we often think about our management jobs as being stressful, but our frontline staff can be very stressed as well, right? So the service profit chain requires service-minded, satisfied employees as key requirements for delivering service excellence, resulting in customer value and loyalty. Now we're going to look at two things here: boundary spanning and emotional labour. So boundary spanning boundary spanners are the service employees that link the outside of the organisation, the inside of an organisation with the outside world. Now, they're spanning the boundary. So you've got an organisation, and you go from one side, the organisation side, you've got all the managers and middle managers and all the technology and all the operating stuff on one side. Then you've got this gap. Then you've got the customers on the other side. What's going on in their head, their month, their budgets, their individual family needs, their family life cycles, all this other customer behaviour stuff going on, right? So there's a boundary. So what links the customer and the firm together are these boundary spanners. And it's our frontline staff, right? So the person role conflict. So boundary spanners often have conflicting roles. And this is quite a neat concept, because we tell our frontline staff what we expect of them, Yet we need to understand that there creates this person-role conflict, and which is conflict between the role and their job, which we're telling them to do as their manager, and their own personalities, their perceptions, their self-perceptions, and their beliefs. So if we as managers are telling our frontline staff to do something that they don't really believe in, or they don't really goes against their personality or their perception of who they are, there's going to be a clash there. So coping with customer aggression is also an issue. So frontline employees have often been portrayed as perpetrators with customers as the victims, yet customers are increasingly the instigators of aggressive behaviour, and the result is employee stress and burnout. So think of the people when you call up Telstra and you've got something wrong, you can't pay your bill or your phone's not working or something like that, and you're really upset, you ring them up, and because of your you as a customer, you're experiencing service failure. So at this point, your level of satisfaction is very low. You're dissatisfied, and you're in an emotional state, and it's a negative emotional state. So when you ring up and you engage with this organisation, your emotions are going to be apparent and manifest in the way that you communicate with this service firm, right? The employees of this service firm, which means that these people, like our staff, are the ones bearing the brunt of the aggression, our customer aggression, when something's gone wrong. So we need to train them for that. We need to understand that this happens, and that can have a massive impact on their own emotional well-being as well. The other thing is, I don't have it in this slide, but research shows that when we train our frontline staff for customer service, they want to be doing what their managers tell us to do, like what we are telling our staff to do. So they go, yeah, I want to do what my boss tells me to do because I'm getting paid for that, and I'm in this organisation, and you've got this culture thing there. So you've got this, there's these desires to comply with what's expected of you, right? Now, when they deal with the customers are also going to have their own problems and issues and share. And they go, oh, when I go to your organisation, this becomes an issue, right? So at the individual level, our customer service people are going to be pulled towards the customers and want to resolve their own personal issues as well. So they're going to be torn from an organisation that's trying to operate this macro level and go, we can't solve every single customer's problem to that level of detail, but then when they're dealing with those customers, they're going to want to do it because the customer's giving them their problems. And as we are as human beings, when people give us their problems, often if we care about those persons, we want to help them solve it, right? So they're going to get torn between helping the customer and complying with organisational policy. All right, so it's not something that is something that needs to be managed, and we've got in our analysis of product, we've got, remember, in our service process, we've got the exceptions there. So the more we train them in how to do those exceptions, the better they'll be able to manage that. But it's not something that you can just have a blanket management approach to, because it needs to be dealt with individually, because that's the nature of how these things arise. All right, now emotional labour. Now, you've heard of physical labour, right? So I come from the construction industry. I employ a labourer. That person is using a shovel and digging a trench or moving bricks around, right? That's physical labour. What I'm paying them to do is physically move things around. I'm paying them for their muscles, right? Now, we've heard of, now this is a similar concept because it's labour, but it's emotional. Now, emotional labour arises when there's a discrepancy between the way staff feel inside and the emotions that management require them to portray in front of customers. Now, we know that for to increase customer service, we want to have a happy place. So we ask and we train our staff to go, well, be happy, right? That's part of our job. Being happy is an emotion. So they're basically getting paid to be happy and positive. So rather than carrying bricks around a construction site, getting paid for that labour, what they're really being paid for, what we're training them, what we're expecting them to do, is to be emotional, a happy display happy emotions. So frontline staff are expected to have a cheerful disposition, be helpful and compassionate. Yet it can be difficult to display positive emotions when staff are not feeling happy or need to maintain them for a long period of time. That's why we need to manage that and understand, well, if you're in customer service, so if you're employing people in customer service and you expect them to have a cheerful disposition, yet they've just found out that their mother's got cancer or something like that, you can't just expect them to rock to work and be happy and blah blah blah, separate aside, because we're all human beings, right? So the better the culture is, they can go, look, I've had this news, blah blah blah. Then you can put them in a different role hopefully you've trained them. We're going to deal with this coming up. Train them in multiple roles. They go, oh, look, you bad news, yada yada. Still want to work? Yes, all right. We'll put you not in a front line role where you have to be doing emotional labour. You can be doing more administrative type tasks or something like that. All right. Now, this other cool idea about emotional contagion. Now, contagion's probably a very familiar word with us all at the moment because we're dealing with the coronavirus. But like a coronavirus, which is contagious, can jump from one person to another, so are emotions. Now, emotional contagion. A cheerful, confident, frontline employee transfers their attitude to a customer via their body language, facial expressions, and other personal cues. And you might not believe this at first, but it actually generally happens. You think about it. You can look at these experiments and stuff like that. If you've got a room of people and someone starts laughing, other people feel compelled to laugh with them as well. Or if someone's smiling, other people start smiling, and that's what we're talking about with the emotional contagion. A good example of this is stores, often retail stores. They'll put someone at the front of the store and they'll be smiling. So I'm going to go back a slide here. So they're getting paid for their emotional labour to be happy and positive disposition, and then this transfers to other people. Now, one organisation which I think does this really well is Bunnings. They have this person sitting at the front there, and you might, if you run a business or you've got a business mind, you might thinking, well, why would they pay, right, this person's probably not earning the most amount of money, but still they're paying someone to stand at the front and direct people to the store where there's all signs and stuff there, right? It just seems like a waste. But from a functional perspective, it is a waste. But from a marketing perspective, it's not a waste at all, because this person's job is emotional labour. They are paid. Their job is not to move packs of timber around the warehouse. No. Their job is to be happy and transfer those happy feelings, that emotion, to their customers. And there's plenty of research that shows when customers are in a happy state of mind, they are much more likely to stay in the store and explore more things and increase their purchases. And we've got models coming up like Bittner Servicescape model, which we'll look at that as well. But how the environment creates these emotional states which create people to want to stay. So that leads us to the end of part one. In part two, we'll be dealing with the cycles of failure, cycles of meritocracy, and cycles of success.